This resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go.
Friends, and welcome to another installment of Cowboy State Politics Live. From very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Thursday. We've got a lot of stuff to cover on today's show. We have an interview with U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. We'll do that at the bottom of the first hour. And there's a couple of other great stories. Becky Hadlock got arrested on some more charges of, filing false election documents. We knew that was coming, but it's finally happened. A long overdue, I think. When you commit a crime, you should be, and I guess when you're accused of a crime even, you deserve to have your day in court, and part of that process is often to be arrested. And so she has been. Also, there's a great article in the Denver Post about our favorite con woman, April Marie Morgenroth. There's a couple of things in there that I didn't even know, and so we're going to cover those too. But we're going to begin this morning with the good governor, Double G, Mark Gordon. Now, we've been covering for a while the exploits of Mark Gordon and Chuck Gray on the State Lands and Investment Board. And they've had a bit of a tussle back and forth, to say the least. Well, yesterday, our governor apologized to Chuck Gray. Now, I just want to take a minute and just talk about an apology in general, not that specific one. No one can deny that he and both of them, Chuck Gray and Governor Gordon, have kind of been at each other's throats. And as it relates to the meetings they've had, they've kind of gone off the rails a little bit. And so, I think that there's a little bit of grace that is in order. And there's an apology that was, I don't know if required is the right word, but that should have been given. I mean, if only to say, hey, I'm apologizing for letting the meeting go off the rails. But that is not exactly how Governor Gordon put it. In fact, I thought his apology was pretty gracious. So the first thing I want to do for you is play the two videos that led up to this. Ken, there's two of them. Let me see what I called them. Hold on just a second. So the first one, let's play, let's start with Step Outside. Let's go with that one first. I think this is the first one.
I think to cast aspersions on the Attorney General, former Justice, is, I just don't think that's a good idea, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, hold on, please. I take deep umbrage at you saying I cast aspersion.
I take
He stepped in and
step outside. You want to step outside?
Are you threatening me?
No, I'm asking if you want to step outside.
Are you threatening me? I've never seen anything.
Mr. Chairman.
That is a stand.
Mr. Chairman.
Look, Mr. Chairman, back to the issues. Please stop interrupting. Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
that's good enough on that.
I just asked that we have the Attorney General.
Okay, so I was talking with the elder Mr. Iverson last night, and he's too busy doing his honey-do list, so often he misses a lot of what happens in the political back and forth. And you might find that ironic given what his son does for a living. But I was telling him about the back and forth with the Secretary of State and the governor. And when I described the video that we just showed you, my dad's comment was, well, wait a minute. Was he asking him to step out in the hallway and have a conversation? Or was he literally asking him to step outside? And my reply to him was, well, Pops, generally between guys, if you utter the phrase, you want to step outside, generally that doesn't mean there's going to be a lot of talking that happens. I'm not saying that's what the governor meant. I'm saying that's one way that you could take that. I don't know. Agent 29, what do you think? If I say you want to step outside.
There wasn't much doubt in my mind, because not only was there the words, there was the demeanor, there was body language. And that's how I took it.
Yeah, that's absolutely how I took it too. But I mean, you could, giving the governor the benefit of the doubt, I guess you could say maybe he wanted to go have a conversation.
I think giving the governor the benefit of the doubt is what has helped put us in the mess we're in.
Well, maybe.
You know?
I'm trying to be gracious here.
Yeah, well, I'm not.
Okay, fair enough. So then last week we had another incident between the secretary and the governor. Go ahead and play this video, Ken. This one's called Shut Up.
How does that go through the office? What processes occur there? Because right now, this is just kind of a little bit pie in the sky if we don't know how to implement it. That's the most important thing to me.
Well, we could keep going for quite a while on this. I've already.
Let's have a question.
There's been accurate things that were said there. I got a response.
You don't have to respond.
I
But,
don't like the inaccuracies.
And there's a lot of inaccuracies that fly around this place here.
Mr. Chairman,
and-
question?
Mr. Chairman, hold on.
Stop. Shut up.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
have the superintendent, then I will recognize
you're
you.
violating your rules currently. You
I
just referred to me in a negative fashion. You're violating your own rules for decorum.
we're going to pause for a bit. Come on.
Are you?
Okay, so that's where they cut the mics, and I think that you probably heard the governor say pretty much the same thing. I mean, he points towards the door and he says, "Come on."
Do you think he meant shut up when he said it?
I'm pretty sure he meant that. Yeah, pretty sure. So you've got two incidents there, both of which, we could make an argument that they were both at each other's throat. Well, yesterday, the governor apologized during the what was it? The State Office Building Board?
State Building Commission.
State Building Commission, the Office Building Board. So anyway, the governor apologized. So let's go ahead and watch that one.
Good morning, Madam Secretary. Before we begin, I'd like to just take a moment. I believe I owe an apology for my choice of words last week during the state loan and investment meeting. Mr. Secretary, I owe you a personal apology and an apology to the members of this board and the people of Wyoming. I should not have lost my composure, and I apologize for that. I have always hoped that citizens approaching either this board or others would welcome a relaxed, less formal approach, migrating into formality only when it's absolutely necessary. Unhappily, that sort of free interplay has demonstrated a tendency to degenerate into tit-for-tat exchanges that often do not advance the work of any of these boards. It is not my style to be formal. Nevertheless, in an effort to lower the temperature of potentially heated arguments, from now on, I would request that all commentary proceed through the chair and that commentary be delivered only when the chair recognizes the speaker. Moreover, I will retain the prerogative as chair to limit extended exchanges of rebuttals should that become necessary. Having said that, Madam Secretary, without any particular issues
Pretty
from the
much
board,
the end of that
I'd
one.
like to proceed.
All right. So, what do we think? Was the governor gracious enough? Do you think that his apology was heartfelt? What do you think, Ken?
I'm probably not going to be the best judge because of my feelings toward the governor anyway. You know, to me, it was a hollow apology in that he was in some way, I felt, blaming Chuck. Okay, we had a loosely run meeting. I thought everybody would like that, but I couldn't handle it.
Okay.
And so therefore we're all going to pay a price because I don't have he's the one that lost his cool. He's the one twice that broke decorum badly. Now I would say that, and I've run several meetings, I've run some with most of these people in them, and I'd say I wouldn't have run it as loosely as the governor started out. There's a whole lot of people, you saw it in one of those videos. You heard Kurt Meyer stand up and say, I think we should have the question. And all these other things popping up there like popcorn without really being addressed or given the table. And you have to stay on top of those things. And then when you don't, and you're the one that fails, then to say, we're going to have to tighten the rules because you people can't follow a loose one, you're the one with the problem, Governor.
I see this in from a couple of perspectives. I think that in so much as the governor dislikes Secretary Gray, I mean, that's obvious. You can look at any interaction between the two of them, and you can see those two don't like each other. You're absolutely right that when you start a meeting and you let things get a little loose, well, then that's on the chairman. That if you run a tight ship from the very beginning, the meeting tends to run a little bit smoother. Everybody understands your expectations, and as chairman, it's your job to run a smooth meeting. And certainly the governor, things have been run a little bit loose. However, I can imagine a world where after the meeting, the governor goes home or goes to the governor's mansion. And I know his wife well enough, not well, but I know her well enough to say that maybe there was a discussion. Hey, Mark, maybe that wasn't the best thing. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying he turned to Secretary Gray and he says, I owe you a personal apology. Now, this is what's known in rhetoric as political apologia. So you apologize, but you don't necessarily say you're sorry. And I think that's what you saw in that meeting. He turned to Secretary Gray and he said, I owe you a personal apology. Now, I want to liken this to another incident from this past legislative session. And that was when you guys were having your marathon late night meeting about the whole check incident thing. And Mike Yen gets up to talk. I think he was right after Speaker Nyman. And you couldn't hear what he said on the microphone. But he turns to the speaker. You can see it in the video. He turns to the speaker and he says something, and you can look at the look on his face and you can say, yep, I think in that moment, at some level, Representative Yin was maybe a little bit remorseful for part of it. Now, do I think that he's remorseful for the entirety of it? No, no, not at all. But I think in that moment, yeah, perhaps. But there again, graciousness goes a long way. And let's go ahead and play when the Secretary of State, Chuck Gray, responds and accepts his apology. I'm going to play that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just wanted to say I appreciate your apology. I accept your apology, and I just really believe in debate and respectful and calm debate, and I hope that we continue that as we continue to debate these really important topics and have important conversations about these important topics. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so
I would just note that if you could press your microphone on, Senator Landon.
Okay, so there you have it. The governor apologized. Notice I didn't say he said, I'm sorry, because he didn't, those words didn't come out of the governor's mouth. But he did apologize. Chuck Gray accepts the apology. So let's ask the same question about the Secretary of State. Do you think that Chuck was sincere when he said, I accept your apology? What do you think about that one, Ken?
Chuck did the right thing. That's what Chuck does.
Yes.
And I think he was sincerely glad that there's a chance to get this resolved and to move on.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Well, our mics are going in and out. That was weird.
I'm fighting about 6 things over here, folks. We've had some comments about levels, and I'm trying to get them tweaked. We'll get there.
We'll get there. It's a work in progress. It's live internet, radio, video, whatever you want to call it. So here's my take on the whole thing. I think that, whenever you have an argument, there's 2 people that are at fault. I was always told that if you're there, you're at least 50% responsible. And both of them have been at each other's throats. And I don't know that it serves any good whatsoever to say, oh, this person started it, because I don't know that we could figure that out. But regardless, both of them have been at each other's throats. And, there's been some button pushing going on. So at least there was some graciousness going on in the state lands meeting. So glad to see that. So let's move on. And I don't mean to sound gleeful about this next portion, but I kind of am. This one, this is a piece from the, I think I got this one from Wildfile, but it's entitled, Weston County Clerk Hadlock Charged with Falsifying Election Documents. Now, this has been a long time coming, and I have to say, for someone who has been as defiant as Becky Hadlock has been, I was kind of happy to see that, all right, maybe we're going to have some accountability for what's been going on for the last, year and a half, 13 months, something like that. But we've talked about this issue several times. And not only did Becky Hadlock file a post-election audit that was, fraudulent is probably putting it mildly. It basically said that we didn't have any problem with the election. There were no problems in Weston County. No, nothing to see here, folks. Just move on. And that wasn't true at all, in any way, in any shape or form. None of that was true. And so, Secretary Gray got it figured out, and then she was subpoenaed by the legislature. She writes a letter to the legislature that basically says, I got your letter, and I know that you want me to appear, but I've got other plans. I really can't change them. And she just blew that off. And there was a petition to remove her as the county clerk. And so that's what happened. Or that's in process anyway. It's a civil process. And as far as I know, that trial is supposed to take place, I think it's next week. Well, yesterday, the Weston County Clerk was arrested on additional charges. From Wildfile, in an article, I already told you the title of it. Here's what it says. Authorities arrested Weston County Clerk Becky Hadlock on Wednesday after a special prosecutor brought additional felony-level charges against the embattled local official for her conduct related to the 2024 election. State investigators found evidence that Hadlock knowingly filed a false post-election audit that did not show any errors, according to an affidavit signed by the Wyoming DCI. A subsequent audit of these same ballots revealed 21 errors. Investigators also spoke with 2 people who said they overheard Hadlock describe such audits as stupid. The clerk now faces 1 count of violating the election code as an official and 1 count of falsifying election documents, both of which are felonies and can be punishable by no more than 5 years in prison. Hadlock's arrest comes less than a week before she is scheduled to stand trial in another case to determine, this is the one I was referring to, whether she should be removed from office for acts of misconduct or malfeasance. Those include allegations that she filed a false audit report in 2024 and defied a legislative subpoena. The allegations stem from her handling of the election night error that led to a dramatic miscount in the uncontested race for House District 1. So this has been a long time coming. And yeah, I think that, and I even interviewed Becky Hadlock, and she told me a different story than what she told the Newsletter Journal, which was different than what actually happened. And so, I mean, this has been, like I say, this has been a long time coming. And I think that public officials that violate the law, that are openly defiant, we need to hold them accountable. And that does a couple of things. One, it hopefully dissuades other people, other would-be elected officials, from doing the exact same thing, from, just, I guess, shirking their duties and trying to cover them up, which is absolutely what happened. In one of the articles that we've covered on this program, I don't even remember, maybe it was the cow pie, but anyway, there was a discussion of she had ballots that were printed incorrectly. And then she had another batch of ballots that were correct. And basically, she shuffled them all together. My guess would be in the hopes that nobody would notice. And I mean, there are a lot of things that came out of the Weston County Clerk's office that, frankly, I think are disgraceful. When you're elected to a position, you should do that job to the best of your ability. And when you screw up, you should own it. Now, of course, I know that maybe that's an unreasonable expectation to ask politicians to own their negative behavior. But that's what we should expect, I think. So in the Wildfile article was Becky Hadlock's mugshot. And since we showed you Christy Haswell's mugshot when she was arrested, I see no reason why I shouldn't show you this one. So, Ken, go ahead and show him my screen, if you would, please. There we go. There's Ms. Becky Hadlock. Now, here's my question, Ken. And I know, this is kind of taking a victory lap, but do you think that this mugshot is better than this one? Or is it better than this one? Which one do you think?
You don't want to know.
All right, my friends.
It's almost like you're setting up a trophy case.
Well, I didn't put Christy Haswell's picture in there. Maybe I should have. We should have the Cowboy State Politics Wall of Shame, perhaps. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's next up, we're going to have the interview with Representative Hageman. So let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll do the interview. Let's get my screen out there. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm your host, David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. Wyoming's most listened to political program. Thank you for watching. Welcome to the show. Now, yesterday, I had an interview with U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. And, there's a lot of stuff going on. We've got an election happening. There's apparently a ceasefire between us and Iran. I think we should start a poll or a pool on how long that ceasefire is going to last, because personally, I don't think that a whole bunch of terrorists are really going to, follow through on their word at all. The ceasefire was announced and there was already rockets that were falling in Tel Aviv. And there was one they fired at Jerusalem too. So I don't really foresee that the ceasefire is going to last really at all. So there's that going on. There's the election. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So I endeavored to get our representative's take on a lot of it. And I did ask her a burning question that I've had for a while, and I'm sure most of you have had also. And so let me just take a minute, and I want to tell you what my strategy is with doing interviews, especially during an election. What I try to do is interview as many candidates as possible, and very soon that's going to start happening. And going into an interview, I really just want to find out who this person is. If it's somebody new, if it's somebody that I've had on the program several times, maybe I skip the whole introduction part because this audience already knows who they are. But I firmly believe that if you let somebody talk long enough, they will tell you exactly what you want to know. You just have to be willing to sit there and listen. A good example of this are the two interviews that I did with Gail Simmons. The first one, and if you go back and listen to them, which the first one was the very first interview I did on Cowboy State Politics. I think it was show number 3 where I interviewed Gail Simmons. So admittedly, I really didn't know what I was doing. And listening to it, the audio's not great. And thank God, we've made a lot of improvements since then. But what I did in that interview is I just let her talk. That I'll tell you what, there are so many times I go back to that and grab little sound bites from that first interview. But then I interviewed Gail a second time. Now, and again, she and I don't see eye to eye on hardly anything. And often you'll hear me talk about one of her dumb op-eds, but still I had her on the program and I just let her talk. And I think that she told you, my audience, exactly what you needed to know about her. And so, it doesn't really matter to me who the candidate is. I think my job is to ask the questions, get the answers, and let you listen to them. So that being said, going forward, when we have a candidate on, that's the game plan. And so here is my interview with U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. It runs about 20 minutes. And so we'll just go ahead and play it for you. Ken? Hit the play button. It's in there somewhere. All right. Okay. Joining me on the phone is U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. Harriet, good morning.
Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's an early Wednesday morning, so got a long day ahead, but so far everything's good.
Good.
All right. Well, we don't have that long this morning, so let's just get to it. I understand you've been traveling around for the last couple of weeks doing town halls. What have you been running into? What are people talking about?
Well, all the things on the news. I've been talking about what we've been doing in Washington, D.C. on behalf of the state of Wyoming, such as my coal bonus bid bill to try to help our coal companies, and some of the other work that I've done on directed funding, for example, bringing money specifically to our communities. People are curious about what's going on with Iran. I've had quite a few different questions about that as well.
Well, I've got that on my list. So why don't we just hit that nail on the head? A couple of the things I saw on a few different outlets this morning is you guys just haven't condemned the president. What is the matter with you?
Well, I'm not going to condemn the president. I
Of
think
course
that he
not.
is doing what he needs to do. It's interesting to me. Every president for the last 47 years has basically admitted and talked about the fact that Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon, that we have to stop this, that they are an evil regime, the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, responsible for thousands of American deaths. We all remember things like the bombing of our barracks in Beirut, what they've been doing to Israel. I mean, we go on and on and on. We've now had decades of presidents who've said exactly the same thing and done nothing to actually constrain them or contain them. And then we finally have someone who comes in and says, we're not going to allow this any longer. We are tired of paying a terror tax. We are tired of the fact that they have controlled the Strait of Hormuz and limited everyone in the world from being able to access the resources that they are purchasing and entitled to. And I'm going to take care of it. And that's what he's done. And now people are screaming like a bunch of wounded banshees.
Well, and it's almost, well, it's not almost, it is apologetics for Iran. It's, it never ceases to amaze me. It doesn't matter how bad Iran acts, how many people they kill, there are still people in, a lot of them in the Democrat Party that they'll just apologize and say that we're the bad guy out of it. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what's going on in their head.
Nonstop. And sometime we'll have to have a longer discussion about what actually went on in 1979, what I remember, how that has affected me in the intervening 47 years in my view of Iran. But you're exactly right. But I would say it's worse than being just an apologist. They are taking the side of evil. They know they are taking the side of evil. They scream and jump up and down and have their little No Kings parade across the country last week and complain about President Trump. Yet they're out there complaining and criticizing him and burning him in effigy and all of those things. And nothing happens to them. They go back to their job on Monday. In Iran, they mowed down 30,000 people in 1 week. And everybody's like, nope, those are the good guys. That's the side I'm going to take. I'm not taking that side. I am not taking that side. Iran is the leadership in Iran. They are an evil empire. They have enslaved their own people for decades. It is time that something was done to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons and from them continuing to harass everyone throughout the Middle East.
Well, now we've got a ceasefire, or so says the president. But even last night, they announced the ceasefire yesterday, and then last night I see that they're still firing rockets into Tel Aviv. So I guess, what do you make of the ceasefire? Do you think it'll hold? And just talk to me about it.
Well, I don't know. I hope that it does. I think that the posturing of the president, that was the other thing. People were screaming about the language that he was using, not recognizing that he's in the middle of very high stakes negotiations about how this is going to play out. And people pretend that he's supposed to be nice and say, well, maybe we could play some patty cake and whoever wins, then they get to decide what's going to happen here. I mean, this is insane that we have got people second guessing his effort to try to end the war, to try to stop what's going on in Iran and find a way out of this mess. Iran is responsible. The leadership, the Ayatollahs, their guard, they are responsible for the situation that they are in. The leadership, not the Iranian people. They have tortured their own people for decades and decades. And it is time for it to end. I hope that the ceasefire will last, but it's up to the Iranian leadership whether it will.
I'm always amazed, and this is kind of an old soldier's perspective, about the stupidity of the questions asked during any kind of a combat operation. When are you going to go? How many people are you taking? Etc.
Yeah.
And they just seem totally clueless. And I'm always appalled by that. And I don't know if you know this, but just before, I think it was probably 75, 76, my family was planning to go to Iran. My stepdad was going to work there. And what went on there when things got turned over is something that I would love to participate in a conversation with at some time. So just those comments.
Well, and that's what I remember. I was a junior in high school in 1979, and the memory of what they did to their own people, our hostages, again, the barracks bombing in Beirut, all of those things are seared into my memory. And what they've even done to their own neighbors, lobbing bombs at them during the course of this operation. They're not the good guys. They have never been the good guys. They have never been the good guys. And why people are acting as though they are simply because they hate President Trump is appalling to me.
Well, and I think you just hit on it right there, that they can't stand it when Trump wins, and rescuing the downed soldier or the downed pilot, getting a ceasefire, reopening the Strait of Hormuz. They just can't stand it that Trump gets any win whatsoever. I'd like to turn, if you wouldn't mind, Harriet, to the what's happening here in our country. We don't see a lot about the government shutdown anymore in the news. So I guess first question is the government still shut down? And the second question would be, if it is, where are we at with that? Are we making any progress?
So a portion of the government is allegedly shut down, and that is the Department of Homeland Security at a very time that we are at war with Iran. So that's the interesting part. I have voted, I believe it is 4 times now, to fund the Department of Homeland Security, including FEMA, ICE, Border Patrol, the Coast Guard, all of those sub-agencies. And the Democrats in the Senate and the House have consistently voted against those measures. Because, again, they want to defund ICE. They do not want border control, and they don't want immigration enforcement. So they have shut down a very important agency for keeping the homeland safe. Now, why don't you hear about it in the news anymore? Because they cannot really paint it as a black eye against President Trump or the Republicans, because President Trump has repurposed certain money that we appropriated in the reconciliation package to pay the salaries of the employees within those agencies. Are the agencies still affected? Absolutely. But at the same time, at least for a short period of time until we can get back to D.C. and resolve this, the employees are at least receiving their pay, which is a good thing.
All right. Well, and one of my questions that I have written down is, okay, so we're not seeing it on the news. It appears that TSA agents are still getting paid, and you mentioned that some money is being repurposed to ICE. But everything else seems to be kind of, running as normal. Would you say that this is evidence that perhaps our government is a little bit too big, or is it just a matter of we still have to do these things? It's just the news isn't reporting on it.
Well, a couple of things. One is that the government is kind of like an enormous ocean liner, and it's going to take some time to turn. And so it doesn't just turn out the lights the moment that the pay goes away, because it can't. And I'm going to say something else. We have some very dedicated federal employees who've gone to work even without pay. And this was the longest shutdown for them in our history. And so those folks, and I'm one who travels a lot through airports. Obviously, I'm on an airplane almost every week, if not twice a week, going to D.C. and coming home. So I see them all the time, and I visit with them when I go through the airport. I thank them for what they're doing. I thank them for what they're being there. And I'm going to say a couple of things about them. They have been professional. They have been happy. They have been engaged. They have been engaging. I said to one gentleman one day, I really want to thank you for being here and doing your job. And he said, as long as everybody's safe, then I'm happy. And I just think that reflects very well on their training, on who they are, on what they're doing. I know people can have some bad experiences with TSA and different agencies, but I have to give them credit for being willing to continue to work and do their jobs and get us through the airports. That says a lot for them.
So has there been any discussion about ending your break a little bit early and going back to resolve this, or are you going to wait until the official end of your break and then just see where you're at?
So the break ends Monday.
Oh,
We're
okay.
back in session on Monday.
Okay.
So we've been out. This is our longest break for the year. We were out for 2 weeks, and then we're going back in for 3. So we'll be back in session for the next 3 weeks after that. And again, we're not the ones that are holding this up. And I really do hope that there is some kind of a resolution that the Senate Democrats can come to. For me, not funding ICE and not funding CBP is really not an option. It's not an option. We have to be able to enforce our immigration laws. And Especially in light of what happened in the 4 years of the Biden administration. We are in a crisis in this country. You're seeing it with the fraud that is being exposed in California and Illinois and Minnesota and different places. That is money that's literally being stolen out of the hands of babes. And we have got to get back. We need to get to work and address these things, but we also need to fund our agencies.
Well, let's talk about that fraud for just a second. I saw a report last night when I was doing show prep that in California, it is the amount of fraud that probably exists is way bigger than anything we saw in Minnesota. Is there any effort from the federal government to try to get a handle on fraud that is happening at the state level using federal funds? I mean, is there anything we can do there, or have you guys thought about it?
Well, yes. And yesterday, I don't know if I was either yesterday or the day before, I was listening to a press conference with the acting attorney general. He has appointed a specific sub-agency within the AG's office that is dedicated solely to going after the fraud. We also have the vice president who has been designated as the fraud czar. And unlike Kamala Harris, when she was designated as the border czar and then never went to the border.
Yeah, we've been to the border.
Never did anything. Yeah, enforcement. He's actually going to do something about it. And this is a guy with a financial background. He knows how to actually ferret out fraud. So I was pretty excited that he was the one appointed. I think that is a great development. But we have the laws on the books. We don't need to pass any more laws to prosecute people for stealing federal funds. And so, but what we do need to do is we need to be going after the leadership and the people in those state agencies that allowed it to go on. There isn't any way possible that these agencies were not aware that the hospices, for example, or in California, or the transport companies in Minnesota, or the daycare centers in Minnesota. It isn't even remotely possible that they weren't aware that those people were stealing money. 80% of the Somali community in Minnesota is on welfare. Why would they need over 1,000 transport companies to take them to doctor's appointments? Why would they need hundreds and hundreds of daycare centers? They should have been staying home taking care of their own dang kids. I mean, all of those things are just the very basic questions that you would ask if you were in those agencies and you had any interest at all in protecting the public coffers.
I mean, it really is like the state level version of a no-show job. I mean, how many movies have been made about how the mafia acts and how they conduct their business? Well, I mean, it in some states, it's not all that different. I mean, Minnesota.
No, that's exactly right.
I mean, it's truly shocking.
It is truly shocking. And I have read that as much as the 50% of the welfare payments in California may be fraudulent.
Wow.
As much as 50%. Now, when I say welfare payments, I'm talking about that in a very general sense, the hospice care, all of those things. I'm talking about the social programs that have been set up over the years to provide people with benefits, that as much as 50%. And that brings up something else. Every time you scratch the surface in California, that you find something else that's absolutely shocking to the conscience. I was meeting with the sheriff's office in Sweetwater County yesterday, and they showed me a copy of a driver's license that they had from an illegal truck driver who could not speak English. He had a CDL, a commercial driver's license from California, and the name was no name given. And this was in Wyoming. It was no name given. And when they contacted the California folks about it, they said, no, that's his last name. No name given. That's legal. That's legitimate. His name was, I think, Avery. No name given. And they said, no, that's his legal last name.
Wow.
And my response to that was, yeah, he's got a lot of relatives.
Yes, he does. Did you happen to take a picture of that ID?
I did.
Awesome.
I've got it on my phone.
I would love to see that one. All right, we've got just a couple of minutes left. I want to turn for a minute or two to state politics. It's been a while since you and I have talked, and since then we've had a gubernatorial announcement. I was going to ask you if you could just tell my audience how you came to decide on how you were going to make a gubernatorial announcement.
So, well, yeah, I've endorsed Megan Degenfelder, and I think that she's the best candidate for the job. I think she's the most conservative. I think that she is tested in terms of the position that she's had. I have spent literally hours with her talking about policies, federal policies, state policies, what her plan of action is, what her interest is. I've been very impressed with the amount of preparation and study she has put into this. I think she's one of the better prepared candidates that I've ever seen. And with what my position federally and being able to work with her at the state level to advance the interests of the state of Wyoming, I think it would be a great partnership. I would like to have a closer relationship between the federal delegation and the state offices. And I think that Megan gives us the opportunity to do that. She's a very, very smart young woman. She is doing what she needs to do to get out there and meet with people. She's accessible. She's interested in learning. She's capable of working with the various agencies. I think she's very electable. She's somebody that is capable of going out and talking to people about the issues that are important to them. She's got a great background in both the oil and gas industry and the coal industry, obviously very important to Wyoming. She understands public land issues and education. She's obviously well-versed in education, and I know that over time there's going to be additional discussion about recalibration and what we need to do with our schools, and I think she will be very well suited to be able to lead on those issues and work with the next superintendent as well as the entire SLIB board to address those issues in the legislature. You know, she's gotten a broad spectrum of endorsements from folks in the legislature. She's got Eli Bebout. She has other folks, and I just think that speaks to her ability to work with pretty much everybody.
All right, let's go to a different race. Ken and I started a poll here. How many people we think are going to be applying for your old job, or I guess the job that you have? So far, all the low numbers are taken, but I do have some up in the 20 and 30 candidate range. Which one do you want to weigh in on?
How many are in right now? I don't know the answer to that. Is it 8 or 9?
I think it's 10.
Oh, it's 10. Okay.
Yeah,
if
you count the Democrat, it's 11.
All right, and I just read about her this morning.
Oh man, but you know, I think that brings up another interesting point. You know, at the state level, this is a case study in why we need a runoff election. I mean, if all 10 candidates stayed in until the primary, the winner's going to end up with 15% of the vote.
You know, you make a very good point, and this has happened a couple of times. When Liz Cheney ran the first time, I think there were 11 candidates, and I believe that she won with a low 40%. I think in a runoff, she probably would have prevailed just because of her name and she was popular at the time. But there's a couple of times. I remember one time in the 80s, we had, I think, 7 or 8 people running for governor. And on the Republican ticket, that is, running for governor. So it has definitely happened in the past. And I think right now people are especially interested in politics, and you're seeing that play out with people jumping in this race.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we all go home at night after my wife closes the salon, and one of the jokes is, well, have you seen anybody else that's running for Congress? I mean, it's been pretty entertaining. All right, Harriet.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. Well, we've pretty much burned up all the time we've got. I appreciate you taking a minute this early in the morning, and when you're up around Sheridan, hit us up and we'll sit down in the studio.
I would like that very much, David. Thank you to both of you, and we'll see you soon.
All right, have a good day, Harriet. All right, well, there you have it. My interview with Representative Harriet Hageman yesterday. Now, just a couple of cleanup issues on there. Now, she mentioned that she had an ID from a guy with the last name of No Name Given, or maybe it's his first name, whatever. But here's what she was talking about. Show it to him, Ken. There we go. No Name Given Ravi. Like Harriet said, I'm sure he's got a lot of relatives where he comes from. But this is the ridiculous part of the immigration, or the illegal immigration question, is that you have states that really don't give a crap about who they're giving driver's licenses to. They don't care if this person has a CDL or not, which this individual did, which also means that they don't give a crap about you, because this guy is going to be the one that can't read the sign that says road closed or that says, turn right instead of turning left. I mean, it is absolutely bizarre. So anyway, there's the ID. The other thing that I wanted to mention, as you all know on Cowboy State Politics, I do not endorse candidates. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The biggest one is I think that you're smart enough to, this audience is brilliant, but you're capable of making up your own mind. You don't need me to tell you who to vote for. And frankly, if you watch the program long enough, you already know who I think would be the best candidate, because I probably talked about him 27 times by the time we get to the election. And so I don't think it's my place to tell you who to vote for. You can make up your own mind. The second reason for that is I'm one of those people that I don't really make up my mind, generally speaking, until I'm in possession of all the facts. I love watching debates, and I think how a candidate performs in a debate, while not completely predictive of how they're going to perform, I think that's a valuable piece of information. And that's how my mind works. And so I'm the guy that wants to see everything that happens. And we all know what an October surprise is. In Wyoming, it happens to be a July surprise or maybe an early August surprise. But elections take a long time, and there's a lot of different things that can happen. And so just personally, I'm the guy that says, well, I like this person, but, it's a long time till August. As it relates to the governor's race, you have, a couple of different candidates. A couple of them are not conservative at all. One of those is Eric Barlow. Eric Barlow's history shows that he votes with the Democrats 85% of the time. That's a fact that he cannot escape. It doesn't matter how many speeches he gives. It doesn't matter how many times he says the word conservative. It does not make it so. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. I mean, it's precisely the case with Eric Barlow. As it relates to Megan Degenfelder, I challenge anybody to give me one example of a super uber duper conservative thing that she's done. Just one thing.
Take the super uber duper out of it. Just show me a conservative move.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Show me a conservative move that's been made. And, and I think on top of it, how she's handled this whole Sweetwater County document dump thing. And by the way, I'm still waiting for the media to do their follow-up on it. How she screwed over a whole bunch of parents, or her office did anyway. I guess we could say that, she screwed them over because, the poop rolls uphill. And when you're the person in charge, you don't, I think you put this pretty well yesterday, Ken. When you're the guy in charge or the gal in charge, you're the one that gets to accept responsibility. That's one of the perks of the job. And I really don't think that jet setting off to the White House for the Easter egg roll is really handling that. So, if you're watching the program, if you watch it later and you can think of a conservative thing that she's done, please enlighten me, because I've missed it. I would love to have that conversation. So, Ken, any thoughts on our interview with the good representative?
Probably should just remain silent.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let's take our next break. And when we come back, there's an update to the April Marie Morgenroth story. Can't wait for this one. Thank you to the Denver Post. Back in a minute. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. and your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program. Cowboy State Politics live on a Thursday. My name's David Iverson. I'm doing what I was born to do with talent given to me by the man upstairs himself. Thank you for watching the program. Thank you for everything you do for all of the Cowboy State Politics content. And, you know, I was trying to do a little survey of all the content that comes out of Cowboy State Politics. And the reality is, Ken, I don't know if you realize this or not, but really, we're doing more original content on this program than some of the biggest names in media. Take, for example, maybe like Sean Hannity. So Sean's on 5 days a week, and he does his nightly show. So there's 10 shows he does a week. We're pretty close to him. We've got 4 live programs a week. We have 3 podcasts, sometimes 4. There's 7. There's all the articles on the Open Range Record, which admittedly, you know, most of them are written by other people. But there's a ton of original content. Certainly, we're doing more than anybody else in the Wyoming media, which is probably a good thing because they just pretty much lie to you.
We do more for less than anybody else.
No, that is true. That is a 100% certainty. To the Denver Post. And, well, before I go there, you know, Ken, from the very first article that came out, first time, not even before the first article, the day I walked into the Platte County Courthouse and pulled the arrest warrant for April Marie Morgenroth, I have been thinking, you know, there is one video clip that I need to play before we ever start this whole story. And I finally got it. Go ahead and play the Flim Flam Man for us. This is a perfect example of Ms. April Marie Morgenroth.
Now, can you tell me where you see
George C. Scott as Mordecai Jones, the Flim Flam Man.
Can't cheat an honest man.
Awarded the honorary degree of MBS CSDT.
Master of backstabbing, corkscrewing, and dirty deal.
You're the Flim Flam Man.
Now, I would never give April Marie Morgenroth so much credit as she has a PhD in MTS CSDD, but STDD is what it is.
I have to wonder if she's ever tried to fly a commercial jet airliner.
Well, you know, I mean, that's still, I mean, think about it. In terms of Wyoming con men and con women, she's pretty well near the top when you consider all of her exploits. I mean, it is truly impressive. Though, you know, if you're a good, successful con person, one requirement is that you don't get caught. I mean, that's and even in the Flim Flam Man, he gets caught, or at least there's a long chase. One of Representative Jennings' training videos.
I'll tell you a little story about getting caught.
Oh, yes. Does it involve April Marie Morgenroth?
No.
Okay.
I had a friend in Colorado Springs who'd been a cop for many years, and one day he had to drive an individual from the county jail to prison. And on the way, of course, what are you in for? He's kind of pressing the guy for the details about what happened. And basically the story goes he would walk into a bank and he would pick up a bunch of blank checking deposit things, and he'd go and sit down with the whoever opened accounts, and he'd put in a few $1,000s, and he'd say, I represent XYZ company, we're in the area, we're making some kind of exploratory questions about that. Anyway, we'll be making a number of deposits over the next few days in various amounts. Some will be quite small, some may be quite large. Anyway, gets it all set up. Takes those slips back to his hotel room where he has a magnetic printer.
No.
And he prints on the bottom of the deposit slip the magnetic numbers for his account. And then he takes them back to the bank and he sticks them in the island. And now the banking system has changed since he did this. But what would happen was anyone that picked up one of those forms and filled it out, their deposit would automatically be diverted to his account.
Oh.
And then he'd go back in after about 4 days and he said, we determined that this isn't going to be here. I'd like to close out my account. And they closed out the account and they left. Well, they finally caught up to what he was doing. And he told my cop friend, he says, nobody knows how long I've been doing this. Nobody knows how much money I've laid aside.
Nobody knows where
one
it's
day
at.
I would get caught. And I thought, man, if he put that much ingenuity into just doing an honest job.
Oh, man.
But it is strange.
Well, and I'm sure part of it is the rush you get from not getting caught or trying to pull it off.
Yeah. Could I pull this off? Could I get this done?
Well, in my thinking, Ken, it's much easier to actually put some effort into something and not break the law and be successful at it. I get a much bigger. I mean, that's got to be a much bigger rush than criminal behavior. But it's interesting you bring that story up because in the Denver Post piece that was published, I think it was yesterday. So it was published yesterday. There's some details in here that we didn't uncover and that nobody else in the Wyoming media did either. Take, for example, this. This is from the Denver Post, an article entitled, "A Colorado Newspaper Fired a Journalist for Making Up Quotes." It should be quotations, by the way. She changed her name, got back in the game, and now she's facing prison. And listen to this, quoting from the piece. In 2007, Morgan Roth, then known by her birth name, April McClellan, we dug that up, was charged with cashing a $5,000 welfare check in Arizona meant for her brother, according to court documents. She failed to respond to the bank's efforts to seek restitution, authorities said, and attempts to locate her were unsuccessful. She then withdrew the $5,000 and disappeared, investigators said in the criminal complaint. In 2008, McClellan was charged with 3 counts of felony forgery after Arizona authorities accused her of forging a court document, a Department of Corrections employment statement, and a document from her previous landlord as she sought an apartment for rent. Now, we knew that one of her charges in Arizona had to do with some sort of a lease agreement. But the $5,000 check, we didn't really know about that. Let's see here. From the same section, Bethany Barnes, who was dealing with Morgan Roth in Arizona, met April Morgan Roth around 2010 when she worked at a Sears department store in the Phoenix suburbs, and the two quickly became close friends. Over time, however, Barnes realized that it became hard to trust her friend's word. Weird. Morgan Roth said things about her family that Barnes later learned were false. Like, I don't know that she's descended from Wyoming's largest cattle ranch, or I just kind of made that one up. But she did claim to have land holdings in Wyoming that were huge. She would say that she couldn't hang out for a certain reason, only for Barnes to find out that Morgan Roth was somewhere else. Quote, "She was always making herself look bigger than was actually the case," Barnes told the Post. And it was just a little bit of everything. You could tell that she was being dishonest. These larger-than-life tales grew harder to tolerate, Barnes said. Eventually, the two lost touch. Well, it turns out, and we detail this in the Open Range Record piece that we published, that her qualifications got better and better and better over time. And let's see here. There's another piece in here that we didn't even know. Let me get to it. So the slew of felony charges. Okay. Where is it? Hold on just a second. So there was this renewable energy project here. I think I've got it. Maybe. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll keep looking while we're talking about this. So there was this energy project that she was opposed to, and then she submitted documents to the state, and it was in a petition for the removal of the Platte County Commissioners was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. And then the other one was documents about the windmills and the energy project. And one of them was from a doctor, and then there was some from a school board official. Let's see here. Arizona State. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, listen to this. On March 9th, prosecutors in Platte County, Wyoming, arrested Morgan Roth and charged her with 10 counts of forgery and perjury related to her opposition to the Chugwater Energy Project. Authorities allege a local journalist concocted letters of support from 2 area residents expressing their supposed objections to the project and lied under oath about during a public hearing held by a state panel considering the proposal. Now, we knew all of that. Listen to this next part. In a pre-hearing statement, she asserted that she held 3 degrees from Arizona State and was pursuing a law degree, owned an unspecified local brand, and operated various ranching businesses in several states. And an arrest affidavit said that she introduced herself to the judge as Dr. Marie Hamilton. Now, the funny part about that is Marie Hamilton doesn't exist, nor does Marie Hamilton have a doctorate. 2 weeks after the initial charges, prosecutors in the same district filed 10 additional federal charges, or felony charges, not federal, against Morgan Roth. Authorities say she forged documents purporting to show that that she qualified for a federal loan. But the piece goes on, and I'll go ahead and link to it because this is, I mean, kudos to the author of this one, Sam Kabachnik, I guess that's how you say his name. But anyway, it's a pretty thorough article, and there's some stuff in there that we didn't even find out. So I encourage you to go check it out. One more time, I suppose it's worth showing you this picture. April Marie Morgan Roth, a Wyoming's con woman. Maybe that's too much of a title for her. I'm sure there has been a con job that has been better than Marie Morgan Roth, though I don't know of one. Hey, if you're listening and you know of a con woman or con man that's done a bigger job than this, let me know, man. I'd like to know.
I won't comment on the huge tracts of land.
Huge tracts of land. Oh, I do have one more picture. So during Morgan Roth's time at the, when she started the 307 Wyoming Sentinel, she would post videos and pictures like this. Let me just, we'll make it bigger so you can see it. Does this not scream, I'm a con woman? I mean, just look at the picture and all of the things in the background, including the burgundy cowboy hat. But just everything in there. And it's in all the people that we've talked to, a lot of the things that you see or that Morgan Roth claimed about herself are just not true. And I don't know. I saw this picture. This one's in the Denver Post piece, but it just screams, I'm a con woman. And you shouldn't trust me at all in any way, shape, or form. From Fox News, Colorado's latest Supreme Court loss adds to a growing string of culture war defeats. Colorado's loss in the Supreme Court's Kaylee Childs case last week marked the 3rd time in recent years the justices have rebuked the state in a major culture war dispute, according to a growing pattern of high-profile reversals in cases over speech, religion, and anti-discrimination. Now, this all ties back to the Colorado baker that he didn't want to make the cake for a same-sex couple or a homosexual couple. Then he was sued. He's been sued several times for not doing that. And there's several other cases in Colorado along those same lines. The High Court's decision was the latest in a trio of lawsuits that backfired for Colorado after the Colorado Civil Rights Commission lost in court to the cake baker in a key religious liberty case, and after a website designer won a similar battle against the state Civil Rights Division. Conservative legal experts said that the legal setbacks for the state were not a coincidence. Listen to this. Quote, Colorado seems hell-bent on enforcing its own new orthodoxy of thought, and the Supreme Court has had to come back time and again and correct them and to remind them that the First Amendment protects the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and even when the state may disagree with a person's opinions. The Supreme Court last week found that Colorado's conversion therapy ban, signed into law in 2019 by Mark Gordon's pal, Jared Polis, violated the First Amendment because it only restricted talk therapy when the therapy aimed to prevent minors from embracing being transgender or gay. And this is a good example of the very reason why the First Amendment was written, to prevent the government, any part of government, from restricting your freedom of speech, your freedom of religion, your right to free expression, all of those things. But when liberals fail at pushing their agenda through public opinion and convincing people that, you know, their point of view is the correct one, they resort to the courts. They always do. That, well, if we can't convince you to do things, you know, through rhetoric and through persuasion, well, then we're just going to force you into doing it. We're going to pass a law, and you're just going to have to do what we say. You know, if it were in the Soviet Union, the end of that phrase would be, or you'll get a bullet. Of course, you know, hopefully we don't do that here. But, you know, you'll be prosecuted. You'll be sued. We'll try to destroy your life. Think about how much money that baker in Colorado has went through just defending his business and himself. That's not the government's place. The government's place is not to tell you what to think or how to think or to think at all. Their place is a very, very small number of things. You know, the only thing the government should be worried about is infrastructure, you know, water, sewer, the police. I like to drive on nice, smooth roads. Maybe the fire department, that's good. And to keep a regulatory and tax environment that is low and that's amenable to business. That's their only job. Any of them weighing into what you should think or feel or anything, I mean, that's just not the government's place. Nor should we allow, you know, a school district to, you know, transition your kid or, you know, force your kid to read books that are pornography or to allow pornographic books in your library. I mean, none of that is the role of government. I mean, and let's just talk about this for a minute, because conservatives get accused all of the time of just engaging in culture wars. That it's just, you know, all of these culture wars, conservatives just tell you like how to think. They just want to control all of your life. Is that the case, Ken? I mean, were you accused of a lot of culture war stuff?
We get accused of that all the time. The problem is it's very difficult to try to assess someone else's motivations. I think it's very interesting. It's pretty early on into this, I became aware of Article 7, Section 20 in the state.
Yeah, in the Constitution.
Where, in fact, and it was Representative Jennings that pointed me to that, because I was kind of taking that argument that, you know, we ought to be a little bit more laid back on the social issues and kind of let things go. But we are called to be a light.
Yes.
And we have that opportunity, and in fact, we have a moral obligation according to our own Constitution. And as long as that Constitution says what it says, then I think we're compelled to do that and to be the conscience for the state. And I think we do a pretty good job of doing that. And the fact that we ruffle some feathers, you know, the flak is always heaviest over the target. So.
Well, for sure. But I think that you get that accusation probably most of the time when we talk about abortion. And it's, you know, the right is always accused of, well, you're restricting a woman's right to choose. Now, how dare you tell a woman what to do with her body? Well, that's not your body that we're talking about. That's somebody else's, and
That's a straw man argument there.
yeah. I mean, you don't get to make that decision for somebody else. And, we could debate that all the time, but it's not a question of, restricting somebody's freedom of choice. You had the freedom to choose to hop into bed. You had the freedom to choose to, engage in that act. Your freedom of choice stopped right after you decided to create that kid. And, call it what you want, but that's what that is. And, when the resulting child, and let's make no mistake, an unborn child is a child. It meets every definition of life. And so that's not a culture war. Let's take another one. What was it? Zoe's Law? Is that the one? I know I know that wasn't the title of it, but it's the law that bans transgender surgeries. Is that a culture war type of piece of legislation? I don't think it is, because it prevents a doctor from making, or parents for that matter, for making a medical life-changing decision for someone who is under the age of 18. After you're old enough, after you're over 18, you can make your own decisions, whatever you want to do with your life. But when you're a minor, the state has a compelling interest in protecting your rights. And that is essential. That is your right to choose.
Yeah, the state has a compelling interest in protecting your rights, but you still belong. That's a tough one, because you still, as a child, belong to your parents. And
yeah, but a parent can't tell you to lop your arm off. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't like the way your arm looks. We're getting rid of it. I mean, no. I mean, we have lots of laws protecting children. What about the porn books in libraries? House Bill 10. I mean, is that a question of, culture wars?
In any public library, I think so, yeah, because public funds are used, and that's there. If you have a private library, you do what you want to do. And
sure.
But that's never the issue.
Right. It's a question, well, how, these books are important to children. No. We have all sorts of laws against indecency. Well, every single town has them.
There is an argument that they use that I actually think is pretty valid, and that is it's ultimately the parents' responsibility to guard their children. And I happen to agree with that. Mistakes happen. The world's a dangerous place.
Yeah, but the school is not one of those. There's all sorts of things you can't do in a school.
Well, but they do. It's all sorts of things you're not supposed to do at church camp either, but guess where a whole lot of kids learned bad things.
Well, okay, but there again, there's the question of a private organization versus a public one.
Right, but I'm just talking about the responsibility of a parent to their children.
Sure.
You should be monitoring, involved all the time. We have a tendency to get a little bit relaxed. Okay, they're going to be safe at school, so I won't even worry about it. Okay, they're going to be safe at church camp, so I won't even worry about it.
Well, my favorite argument when it comes to the porn books in school, and we published an article during the legislative session, and by the way, I think that with the exception of a really old article from Clara McFarland when she wasn't carrying the water for Megan Degenfelder, she actually published some of the pictures that are in some of these books. But that was, man, I'm going to say that was 2 years ago, maybe 3. Well, anyway, the Open Range Record, we wrote an article about House Bill 10, and there are screenshots of that book in there, and they are pornography. I mean, without a doubt. But my favorite argument in this debate is just to ask a question. And let me try it with you, Ken. So, Ken, why in a public library do we not have back issues of Penthouse Letters?
That's a good question.
Good question, right? I mean, there's generally not a lot of pictures in that, but why don't we? I mean, it's literature, right? We could make an argument that it's could be historical.
Well, if you only read the articles, I suppose you could make that argument.
That was always my excuse. Yeah. I only read the articles, honey. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I don't have a subscription to that, by the way. But here's the point. The reason why we don't have a set of back issues in just about any library that I know of those magazines is they are pornography. They fall into the same, they are in the same category as you walk into the gas station and I don't know, do we still have magazines behind the counter wrapped in black plastic? I haven't paid any attention to it.
I don't know.
But, okay, well, years ago, you'd walk into the gas station and then the dirty magazines were behind the counter and they were wrapped in black plastic. So why were they wrapped in black plastic? Because they're pornography and you don't want little kids to see them. And there again, another question. Why were they behind the counter? Well, because you had to be of age to buy them. That's why. And so the reason why you don't have them in a public library is by just about every community's statutes or ordinances, I guess is a better word. Cities and towns don't have statutes. They have ordinances. The state has statutes, but every community has an ordinance against indecency. That's why you can't pee in public. You get arrested for that. Not that I've tried. But, all of these things, and we've covered, a couple of different topics, but conservatives get accused of, engaging in culture wars, and you're just trying to tell people how and what to think through all these laws. No, that's not the case at all. It's trying to keep government in its proper box, and that includes what we allow as a society, and what we outright prevent. I mean, there's two sides to that, right? So if you don't have a law concerning a subject, then you're allowing it, and what you allow is what you condone. And so, it's not a matter of culture wars. But just like the piece from Fox News with the baker down in Colorado, it's the government doesn't have any place telling that baker what kind of cake he has to make or what kind of website somebody has to design or anything like that. I mean, that's up to your choice as an American. And if it's a private business, I'll do whatever I darn well please with it. The government can stay the heck out. So there is another, what I think is a fascinating article on the Open Range Record right now, and it's entitled Tyranny of the Minority. Data challenges the Generation Wyomingite mantra. Now, if you've listened to this program for any length of time, you know that I think that argument is a load of bull crap. That I'm a 27th generation Wyomingite, therefore you should listen to me. Or as Gail Simmons puts it, I'm a 4th generation Wyomingite. Well, frankly, that argument doesn't tell me a darn thing about you.
I think you should point out to the listeners, do you know how far back your family goes in Wyoming?
Yes. It's depending on how you define it, it's either 4 generations or 5.
Okay. Do you have an approximate date when they may have arrived?
Oh, it was late 1880s.
Yeah. The point being that you're not someone that is expressing sour grapes because you don't have that. You could, as could I, lean on that argument and see that, and yet both of us reject it. So.
Yeah, I mean it's a worthless argument, and I don't even think it's really an argument. The only thing that it tells you when somebody says, I'm a 4th generation Wyomingite, and almost all politicians do it, not the ones sitting in across the table from me. And frankly, since the very first time I brought this to Representative Hageman's attention, at least in interviews with me, she hasn't said that. Because it doesn't tell you anything about the person running for office.
I think what it does tell you is I know nothing of the rest of the world. I've been isolated here.
Yeah, I'm pretty ignorant, and the only thing I can think of is what my grandparents did. Because that's the only thing that argument tells you about. It tells you that your ancestors had pretty good taste. It doesn't say anything about you. You are not responsible for when or where your ancestors copulated.
I think I have kind of an advantage that way. I do have roots in Wyoming going back about as far as any white man.
Sure.
And fine. But I did get to spend time. I lived on 3 different continents and a couple of different countries. I've lived in many places around the United States, briefly, albeit. And what that taught me was how good we have it here. Taught me some, not everybody thinks the way we do, all of those things. And I think it was a valuable experience. And I think that everybody ought to have to spend a little bit of time away. And man, as soon as I was able to make a choice, I hot-footed it right back home.
Yeah, well, I had the very same experience when I moved to Virginia. But that's, that's another thing that phrase tells you. When somebody says, I'm a fifth generation Wyomingite, you could deduce from that they probably haven't gone anywhere else. They probably haven't done anything else. If that is the best argument that they can come up with why you should vote for them, your immediate response would be, you're dumb as a box of rocks and you don't have any life experiences. Because, honestly, if that's the only thing that you're saying, I've been here for a long time. That's stupid. That's like saying you should give me a raise because I've been hanging around for several years. Well, the only reason you should get a raise in a business is if you provide more value to your employer. You don't get a raise for being the same guy. It's you shouldn't get a promotion for doing that. You're just doing the same thing. And so if you're the person that says, well, I'm a fifth generation Wyomingite, that it's actually the first argument you have to vote against them. But the piece in the Open Range Record points out what I think is a very interesting statistic. And let me just read to you the first couple paragraphs of this thing. This is by one of our great writers. His name is M.J. Keaton. Here it is. The evidence suggests that the old Wyoming gatekeeping effort is being conducted by a group that is numerically shrinking. While the rhetoric focuses on 1890 roots, the state's actual character is being directed by a majority of residents who have lived in the state for less than 3 decades. So in other words, the amount of people who have actually lived here for a really long time represents a small part of the population. For much of the 2026 election cycle, a specific rhetorical defense has emerged from the traditional wings of the Wyoming establishment. It's the appeal to residency tenure. Candidates and officials frequently cite their status as a fifth or sixth or 27th generation. It doesn't say 27. It says fifth or sixth generation Wyomingite as the primary qualification for leadership. The underlying argument is that a deep family history within the state confers a superior right to direct its future. However, recent data from the U.S. Census Bureau and the Wyoming Economic Analysis Division reveal that this, quote, old Wyoming demographic is not only a numerical minority, but is also statistically inconsistent with the very logic of the argument. According to the latest figures from the 2024-2025 American Community Survey, less than half of the people living in the Equality State were born here. The data shows that approximately 42.4% of residents are Wyoming-born, while over 57% were born in another U.S. state or abroad. In a state of roughly 588,000 people, the native population is now the minority. The demographic shift has created a significant gap between the rhetoric of the political class and the reality of the constituency. The focus on being a fifth or sixth generation Wyomingite is a common point of pride, yet the math of statehood limits the weight of this claim. Wyoming achieved statehood on July 10th of 1890, exactly 136 years ago. Given that a standard generation is defined as 25 to 30 years, a family that arrived during the initial pioneer push of the 1890s would currently be on its fifth or sixth generation. While these families represent the bedrock of the 1890 settler era, they comprise a statistically small portion of the current population. Data on housing tenure shows that the average Wyoming resident has lived at their current home for approximately 14.2 years. And the article goes on to discuss the data behind all of this. But it brings up an interesting point. If the majority of people that live here, and if indeed, and again, this is an example of whether you should accept the premise or not. But if you accept the premise that where you were born is significant, well, then the majority of people that live here were not born in this state, and therefore any claim that, hey, I'm a fifth generation Wyomingite, you're appealing to a minority of people, which means you're not representing a larger constituency. And, what this piece is a critique of that argument. To say when a politician says, I've been here for a really long time, well, so what? That means that you don't represent the majority of people in the state or probably your county even. And it's just another piece of logic that shows you the vapidness of most Wyoming politicians.
I would say that I think it does make a difference if you've been here long enough to understand the culture. And I get the argument where we don't want people coming in here and bringing their California ideas, their Colorado ideas, and infecting the way we do things in Wyoming. I get that. I would say when my family arrived in Wyoming, the population, I just looked it up, the population was just about 9,000.
Okay. Wow. Now, was that, hold on, I don't mean to interrupt you, but was that when they arrived? So you said 1880s, right? So that would be the Dakota.
18, well, started riding through in the mid 1870s.
Okay.
And settled here in 1878.
Okay, so I have a map, and my geography here is a little bit off, but I have an 1886 map of Wyoming. I've been meaning to get it framed, but the counties are totally different. Okay, now we still have the state borders. Yeah, it's the strips. We still have the state borders, but the question is,
it was territory.
Yeah, 9,000 people in that whole area. I mean, we complain about not having a gas station for 50 miles.
Something like 9 million square miles.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. All right, sorry, continue.
No, I'm saying statistically, there just aren't going to be very many people that are going to go back that far. But it is what it is. You have to have been here, I believe, long enough to understand why it is what it is. People move here, I think, because they see something they like.
Yes.
And I have seen a lot of people coming from, for example, out of Colorado. Oh, I like the way it is here. And then when a policy issue comes up locally, oh, I think we should do it the way back home, back in Iowa. This is what we did. I don't care how you did it back in Iowa.
But I think there's a balance to that too, Ken.
There is, and that's my point. And I advocated just shortly before that it was a benefit to me to go live in North Carolina.
Yeah.
To live in Colorado. To live in Europe, to live in Asia.
Sure.
And understand pros and cons about different things. Anyway.
Well, and the response to that, I think, is, and you hear this a lot down in Cheyenne, we need Wyoming solutions for Wyoming problems. Okay, well, the response to that is pretty easy. You just say, so wait a minute. If a cure for cancer was found in Illinois, would you argue that we need a Wyoming cure for cancer? Because certainly there's a lot of people in this state that suffer from cancer. So would you say, we don't need that Illinois, back the way we did it back in Illinois, we need a Wyoming solution. Of course, I'm being hyperbolic, but that's the point, is to expose the ridiculousness of that argument.
To be fair, there's another facet of it. For example, Coffeen Avenue has grown tremendously. The traffic has grown. There is no Wyoming solution to that because we haven't gone through it here.
Well, in Sheridan, yeah.
Yeah. Casper has seen some of that. Cheyenne has seen some of that. But they have different challenges and whatever. But the point is, when you get to a situation where things are a challenge, someone who has dealt with that before, when I first went to Colorado Springs, it was basically a small town the first time I was stationed at Fort Carson. And it's vastly larger.
Yeah, it's not a small town anymore.
And to see how they developed and to learn maybe some positive things, but also from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Those are all valuable. So.
Well, and it's communities grow and change. And I absolutely agree with your point, Ken, in which, where you said, look, there is a certain culture. Every state has its own culture. And one of the reasons why people choose to live here is because of that culture. And so certainly we don't really want to change that. And so, you and I have a mutual friend that moved here from, I think it's California. And, it took him a while to figure it out, how things work here. But here's the thing, the country was designed so that each state was its own little laboratory, that no one state is going to figure out how to do everything the right way. And so when a state is confronted with a problem, they can look at all these other laboratories and say, okay, well, how did they handle it in Massachusetts? Is that solution applicable in this situation. Let me give you one very, very early example. One of my favorite passages in the Wyoming Constitution. Ken, do you have your copy of the Constitution handy?
I don't have it handy.
Okay. I think it's Article 1, Section 7, and it's no arbitrary power. And I may misquote it, but it says absolute arbitrary power has no place in a republic, not even in the largest majority. Now, that phrase, that section, was actually taken from the Virginia Constitution. And that's not the only one. There are several pieces in our Constitution that were grabbed from other states. The guys that were writing ours said, hey, you know what? We like what they did in Virginia, this piece anyway. And so we're going to use this. And so from the very beginning, Wyoming was not focusing on Wyoming solutions for Wyoming problems. In fact, if that were the case, we would be a state of, miscreants and criminals and uneducated dolts. I mean, and you think I'm being facetious, but I'm not. One of the reasons why the education piece says the state is going to pay for education is in there is Wyoming had a reputation at the time of statehood of being a territory of criminals and uneducated, people. And so the guys who are writing the Constitution, they're like, hey, we'll show them. We'll pay for education. Well, we're certainly paying for it now.
My great-grandfather Altai was a cattle rustler in the Glen Rock area. And he got wiped out the bad winter, I forget, 1881, whenever it was. And so he migrated over into the Bighorn Basin. He got over the Bighorn Basin. They decided they were going to make Washakie County an independent county. And he actually became the first sheriff of that county. And the reason he did was because we have a lot of cattle rustling issues, and we understand you know a little bit about that business.
You've had some experience in that area.
That's how he got into that. He didn't last long. He only did one term, but
it's funny stuff.
It is. And when you go back to the Johnson County Wars, you go back to those stories, the Spring Creek Raid, and all of those things. Wyoming was pretty rough and tumble, and a lot of people came here to disappear.
Yes.
It's rumored within the family that my great-grandfather came here because of a jealous rage murder. Don't know. There's no proof.
Right.
But you never know.
Well, and and I want to go back to the piece for one quick second. So the question is, should the people that move here, that are now the majority of the population, that is people that have moved here from other states, do they deserve their own representation, or a representative that reflects their values?
No.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. That's why I asked the question. But certainly, if all of your candidates are the people that are saying I'm a fifth generation Wyomingite, well, then their values, I mean, you would think would be at the very least slightly different than the folks that they're representing.
I think you bring a valid point, and everybody needs to be represented. And then supposedly it is the ideas are debated and passed around, and whichever one wins. And then if we start down a path that we immediately begin to regret, we can go the other way.
Sure. Well, and it's also important to point out that lots of people that are elected to the legislature right now were not born in Wyoming. One more little segment from the piece on the Open Range Record. The data also, and quoting now, the data also reveals an irony in the current struggle for control in Cheyenne. The Wyoming Freedom Caucus, which recently secured a majority in the House with 34, and there's a mistake in here, but this is the way the author wrote it. So the majority is roughly 34 seats. Not all of those are in the Freedom Caucus. Draws its greatest strength from the high growth counties with the highest rates of out-of-state migration. One of those is Crook County, which has seen a 9.3% growth in out-of-state folks moving in since 2020. Lincoln County, which has an 8.2% growth since 2020, and our own Sheridan County, which has a 7.5% growth from other states.
And yet both Crook and Sheridan have long-time
Yes.
Wyoming families.
Right. And so the last part that I'll read here, these counties are being reshaped by a domestic migration surge from more ideologically rigid individuals leaving blue states. This influx has created a situation where newcomers are often the ones unseating long-term traditional residents by labeling them as not conservative enough.
Yeah, I want to contradict something I just said.
Sure.
If you look at Sheridan's representation,
You and
yeah, I've been here a long time.
Tom Kelly right now.
But Tom Kelly hasn't been here very long. Lori Bratton hasn't been here very long.
Now, Lori's from Colorado, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. When I first met her, which was years ago, actually, that was an issue to me.
It's not so much anymore.
I got over it.
I mean, she's got a pretty solid voting record. And so anyway, it's just something to think about. That's why we have the open range record, is to bring different perspectives to the conversation, as opposed to all these other Wyoming rags that they give you one perspective, and it's always the redcoat one. So let's go ahead and take our last break, and when we come back, we'll finish up the program. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Thursday. Thanks for watching. Thanks for choosing to spend your time with us. I really appreciate it. So this just in, we have official video of the operation to go get our downed service member, the guy who was putting his SEER training to use and evading the Iranians trying to capture him. So we've just got some official video from the supposed Department of Defense on how that thing went down.
So if you look at that photograph, I want to tell you a little.
That's not official. That's Legos.
But something that is kind of cool in there, I can remember standing out on the desert and all of a sudden the sand just jumped up in front of me. And by the time you figured it out, the jet was already gone over the horizon behind you. I thought that was a nice touch on this. But yes, here is the official story about how they rescued the downed airman.
Yes, the official, unofficial story. Hit it.
God is good. He's alive. Go get our boy. One American behind enemy lines. Wounded, surrounded. We bring him home.
Viper 1-2. Hang in there. We're coming. Coming in danger close. Keep your heads down.
That's the A-10 Warthog.
Let's go
That's
home.
the coolest part.
Package secure. Heading to extract.
There you go. The official video from the not so Department of Defense. When I had stepkids, AJ, my stepson was he's autistic. He's now in his 20s. But if I didn't know what to get him for his birthday or Christmas, man, it was always a home run to just buy him more Legos. And you don't really realize how many Legos you're buying until you put them all in one spot after you've stepped on them about 27 times when you least expect it. But his Lego bin, it is one of the large Rubbermaid totes. And the thing is, man, I don't know, it's about that wide, about that deep, and it's pretty darn tall. They're still sitting in storage over at Buffalo, but I don't think it matters how old you are. You still have fun putting Legos together, I think. What about you, Ken?
That's the fun part, but we've also discovered with a little bit of tannerite, you can take the Legos apart.
Just a little bit, a pound or two. From the Turkey Vulture, Lee Filer. Oh, Lee, one of your best pals, Ken. I was
having such a nice day.
Well, we're going to make fun of him here in just a second. Wyoming people deserve the truth, not a campaign slogan. Now, with a title like that, you would think that there wouldn't be a single platitude in an opinion piece. Not one one-liner, not one thing that doesn't mean that isn't more important than a hill of beans. But you would be wrong. And I quote, in a recent column, Representative Steve Johnson claimed the Freedom Caucus, and here, this is a direct quotation from the piece. So, in a recent column, Steve Johnson of Cheyenne, who's a representative, claimed the Freedom Caucus, quote, slowed the growth of government spending during Wyoming's budget session. That sounds good until you look at the facts. What Wyoming people deserve isn't a slogan. They deserve the truth about what was actually proposed, what was at risk, and who stood up to protect the state's future. Goldman Sachs that's not it. I'm pretty sure Lee Filer doesn't know anything about Goldman Sachs.
I can just tell you from the first couple of sentences exactly where he's going to go.
Oh, yeah. Well, there isn't. Now, remember, there's not a single campaign slogan in this entire piece, except for this one, because the reality is this. The Freedom Caucus didn't just try to slow growth. They pushed policies that would have undermined Wyoming's long-term strength. That's not a campaign slogan.
Is the strength of Wyoming, the Wyoming Business Council, is at the heart of development?
Well, it's interesting that you should ask that. They targeted the Wyoming Business Council, our state's primary economic development organization.
Told you I could tell you where we was going.
Jeopardizing efforts to diversify our economy and create jobs beyond the boom and bust cycles that we know all too well. Now, again, remember, none of these are campaign slogans. They're not one-line platitudes, not a single one of them in here. They attempted to strip funding tied to federal dollars already appropriated by Congress for rate rebasing support. Okay, this one probably isn't because he mischaracterizes it, but there's really no campaign slogan in here. I mean, I'm sure of it. This policy isn't just compassionate, it's fiscally responsible. Without it, more people are forced to live in long-term care facilities, costing the state thousands. That's not conservative governance. That's creating bigger bills for the future. And that is not a campaign slogan. That is not a one-line meaningless platitude at all. No. That is high-level analysis coming from the guy who claims to be a Republican, but who is really a Democrat and only registered as a Republican so that he could get elected. And if you're wondering, yes, I interviewed Lee Filer 2 years ago when he was running for office. And if you want a glimpse into who this guy actually is, that's the interview for you. I had that guy so twisted up, he didn't know which way was up. And here's the part that shouldn't be ignored. Representative Johnson and his allies voted for the final budget. How dare you vote for a budget, Ken? Why would you even think about doing that?
We voted for a budget that actually did slow the rate of growth that had been planned.
That's not what Lee Filer says.
Lee, you need to come down here and sit in the studio and bring your lame ass. Sorry.
Well, bring the data, man. Show us.
Bring your data. Yeah.
And you can leave all of your campaign slogans at home.
Yeah, bring it.
So, all right. So what does it mean to slow the rate of growth? Okay. So government always expands. It's just like the prices at the grocery store. You hardly ever see them go down. They almost always go up. You know, the price of wages almost always goes up. And it's because of what I explained yesterday on the program, that the federal government continues to print money. The more money they print, the less your money is worth. And, you know, government programs, I mean, it is virtually impossible to eliminate a government program. Once it's set up, you may not ever get rid of it. And some of that is actually in law. So if you start a healthcare program in a state like, Medicaid expansion, you can't get rid of it because you've given healthcare to people and you've done more than put the camel's nose underneath the tent. But when you talk about the rate of growth in Washington and to some degree in Wyoming, we function on kind of baseline budgeting. And if you look at the budget book, the worksheet that Wyoming's budgets are worked on, the very first column says, what did you spend last year? And then it's what would it take to do the same thing you did last year? That is the baseline. And then the third column, it says, what do you want to add on top of it? So it's the baseline plus all of the things that you want. And so, the budget book, the budget worksheet itself has built into it government growth. And so the question is, what is slowing the rate of growth? Well, if you look at the governor's budget this time around, what it would take to do what he did last year, and I'm just using round numbers here, Ken, don't correct me on the precise numbers, but essentially it would have taken $9.5 billion to do the same thing this time around as we did in the previous biennium. So then if you add on top of it what the governor wanted to do, you end up with like around $11.5 billion, okay? The final budget number, not including all the other bills that were added on top of it, but the final budget number was a little bit south of $10 billion. So the starting point was 9.5. What the governor wanted was 11.5, and we finally settled on, 9.9, something like that. And so, yes, we did slow the rate of growth of government. If the projected growth is at $11.5 billion and your final budget was at 9.9, yes, it is still an increase over what you would have spent to do the same thing last year, minus all the capital construction, but it is still slowing the rate of growth. Now, is there a problem with that? Yes, we should not budget things on baseline budgeting. We shouldn't do that. We should start from ground zero and figure out what are the things that we need, how much is it going to cost to do those things, and then add on top of it. We shouldn't just say this is what we spent last year because you're going to have some programs, maybe some programs that worked great, maybe some of them that didn't work all as intended, and maybe some of them you don't even need to begin with. But the truth is, yes, Lee Filer, the rate of growth was stopped. Now, do I agree with the final budget? No, I don't think that anybody probably agrees with it. I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that we spend money on that government has no place in doing. But the question is, how do you eliminate those? Did the conservatives, Ken, you yourself, took a monumental task on trying to look at the Department of Health. Now, I don't know. I mean, you had some good conversations and you found some places where we ought to investigate and look at things. But as far as really, cutting it, I don't know that you did that much of it.
No, actually, when it comes right down to it, because of the DD waivers, we added.
See, there you go. And those DD waivers, that's the keeping people in their homes, by the way.
We're not done working on the cuts, but I have likened it in conversations before to the old game of pickup sticks. And you look and you say, well, this ought to be an easy one, or Jenga. Maybe I can pull this brick out.
Right.
Everything is interrelated, and there are a lot of federal regulations coming one way and the other. It's not something you can do quickly or haphazardly.
No.
It should be done cautiously. So several of us are still working on rooting out some issues. I believe there are some issues that we can fix. That's 1/3 of our budget goes to healthcare.
Yeah, all right.
And roughly another third goes to education. And so then when you start looking, if you really want to make a difference and you look at any of these other little things, you're really not going to find them.
No. Well, in any case, Representative Filer, you are more than welcome to come on this program. I'll give you a fair interview just like I did last time, but you better bring bring the receipts that you have,
Bring your data book.
Yeah, and because this little piece of garbage that you published, this is going to be Exhibit A in the discussion. So anyway, Lee, you know my phone number. Get a hold of me. You're welcome on the program. I know a lot of people in Laramie County that would prefer that you go fishing instead of going back to the Capitol building. Well, that'll about do it for today's installment of the program. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll be back tomorrow with Open Line Friday. See you tomorrow, my friends. Have a good afternoon. Don't listen to Lee Filer.